Good evening, good day, good morning, wherever you are, from Crimea in the Russian Federation. Today is November 22nd, 2024. Last night, President Putin gave an important television address to the nation. It was really directed at the United States and its vassals in Europe. Let me review it for you now. Putin said the deployment of the new hypersonic missile, or Oreshnik, it was a strike on a Ukrainian defense utility on Thursday morning. Now, this missile is part of Moscow's new generation of medium-range weapons and reportedly travels at speeds of up to Mach 10. Now, that's 2.5 to 3 kilometers per second. Putin emphasized that no existing air or missile defense systems, including those deployed by the US in Europe, are capable of intercepting the Oreshnik. He said there are no means of countering such weapons today. The next point that Putin made was he said that Americans are making the Ukraine conflict global. He accused the United States and NATO of deliberately escalating the crisis by providing Ukraine with long-range, high-precision weapons capable of striking deep within Russia. This past week, Ukraine used American-made ATACMS missiles and British Storm Shadow missiles to strike targets in Russia's Bryansk and Kursk regions. Putin said these acts demonstrate the West's intent to transform the Ukraine conflict into a global war. He said that strikes like the Oreshnik are our answer to NATO's plans to deploy medium and short-range missiles in Europe and the Asia-Pacific. The next point that he made, he placed the blame squarely on Washington for dismantling global arms control systems and arrangements and eroding international security. He said it was not Russia, but the United States that destroyed the system of international security by unilaterally pulling out of all major nuclear arms treaties. He accused the United States of clinging to its hegemony at the expense of global stability, stating that the Americans are pushing the whole world toward a global conflict. The next point was he reiterated Russia's position on the development of missiles. He said Russia had refrained from deploying medium and shorter range missiles globally, but it would reassess this policy in response to the United States' actions. He warned that future targets for Russia's advanced systems would be chosen based on perceived threats to Russia's national security. But he noted, as a humanitarian gesture, he stated that civilians in targeted areas would be warned in advance to evacuate. As far as the strike yesterday with this new hypersonic missile on Ukraine, Russia gave the United States 30 minutes warning, so as not to have them confused that Russia had actually fired a nuclear missile. And finally, in Putin's speech, despite his tough words, he reiterated that Russia remains open to talks, but warned of decisive retaliation against escalating aggression. I've been amazed at the patience and rationality of Russian authorities in putting up with all of this, especially President Putin. Imagine if the tables were turned and Russia imposed a pro-Russian, anti-American president in Mexico and supplied Mexico with these hypersonic missiles and actually fired them into the United States territory along the Texas-Mexican border or the Arizona or New Mexico borders. The United States would view that as an act of war and would go ballistic and retaliate immediately. Yet, people seem to think that Russia has to just sit back and take it when the United States does it to it. Unfortunately, Putin's restraint and rationality have been perceived in Washington as a weakness. But this speech and the subsequent use of that hypersonic new ballistic nuclear capable missile on Ukraine sent a clear message to Washington. Now, I came to Russia for the first time in 2016 to try to understand things from Russia's perspective. I no longer believe the lies and propaganda, but I returned again in 2018 and 2019, and I found out for myself the truth about Russia, and I knew that Russia was not our enemy. And I have tried to share what I have learned with Americans and others with over 450 videos, podcasts, and films. Now, it's unfortunate that we Americans have been indoctrinated since birth with the belief that we are the good guys, the one indispensable nation, the exceptional nation, the city on the hill as a model for the entire world to follow. Our mission was to spread freedom and democracy to the whole world. I was a patriotic American growing up in the post-World War II era, believing that we were the good guys who defeated the Nazis in World War II. I believed that the Native American Indians were bad guys. We played cowboys and Indians. Cowboys always wore the white hat and always won. I grew up believing the Soviets were communist and evil and wanting to destroy the USA and the rest of the free world. I grew up believing all of the lies and the revisionism, the rewriting of our real untold history. I would like to set the record straight. Putin was provoked. The proof is in the actions of the United States, the UK, and the rest. It was the Soviets who won World War II, losing over 27 million people. And 3 months after the Yalta Conference in February of 1945, in May, Churchill and the United States had developed plans to nuke the Soviet Union. Well, from 1945, the United States and the UK have demonized and tried to undermine and destroy the Soviet Union, and for the last 30 years, the Russian Federation. Ronald Reagan, more than anyone, has done more to demonize Russia, calling it the evil empire, a soulless, godless nation. But it was Bill Clinton who broke the promise to Gorbachev when Gorbachev took down the Berlin Wall, leaving the East and the West of Germany to reunite. He was promised that NATO would not move 1 inch east towards Russia. Well, Clinton immediately broke that promise, and in the years that followed, one former Soviet republic after another joined NATO. And it was America's promise, NATO's promise to Ukraine, that it would become a NATO country and part of the EU. This was a line that Russia could not allow to be crossed. And finally, in 2014, the USA publicly and proudly boasted about orchestrating a coup in Kiev, ousting the democratically elected president who was favorable to Russia. It was Victoria Nuland under Joe Biden and Obama who gave out cookies and sandwiches, provoking the peaceful protest at the Maidan into a violent clash that led to the coup and the overthrow of the president. And then the two breakaway republics in the Donbass, Donetsk and Lugansk, were immediately attacked. And they've been attacked for the last 11 years, killing some 14,000 innocent civilians. There are no military installations there. I've been there. I've been there. I've seen the results with my own eyes. And this was all done and orchestrated and planned by the United States of America. We've got to stop calling this a proxy war. It has been, since the beginning, a direct war against Russia with the stated goal of imposing a strategic defeat on Russia, removing President Putin, and then balkanizing and breaking up Russia for its resources. This has been publicly stated by the officials from President Biden on down as the stated goal of the United States. They finally said it. After all of these years, 80 years, they finally said in clear, plain language just this past year that this was the goal. There's no doubt that these neocons deliberately provoked Russia, knowing that Russia had no choice but to invade Ukraine. The US alone has poured more than $200 billion into Ukraine. Much of it they can't even account for. Much of it has gone into the pockets of corrupt people, oligarchs in Ukraine, including Zelensky and his Nazi regime. And then NATO, the European countries, along with the United States, have poured in billions and billions of euros in weapons and money to prop up Ukraine. The United States has consistently escalated the conflict at every turn to the point that today, the headlines of major newspapers around the world are gaslighting us with the threat of a nuclear World War III. It's impossible to deny that we are living in the most dangerous times in human history. We're living in an era where the human race has the ability to destroy itself with this evil nuclear weapon. And today, we are closer than ever to being pushed over the cliff to nuclear annihilation. But here's why I do not think that nuclear war just yet is an existential threat, because Russia has several other options short of nuclear war. First of all, Russia is winning decisively on the ground and making daily huge advances, reclaiming territory all along the front lines. Russia has been intensifying its missile strikes daily for the past week or more, but they've been going on for the last year. Russia has been conducting these assaults on Ukraine's infrastructure, electricity, gas, water, the rail system, bridges, and on important factories that are producing materials and repairing vehicles for the Ukrainian military. There's another reason why Russia is winning and why there will not be an immediate nuclear confrontation. There are 2 months now before Trump takes office, and winter is coming when the ground will be frozen, and this will allow Russia to begin an all-out tank and artillery assault all the way to Odessa and across the Dnieper River, and even to Kiev. Short of a nuclear war, Russia could launch massive missile attacks on Kiev, taking out Zelensky, his Nazi regime, the Nazi-infested State Rada, and the Nazi-infested SBU. And then Russia could strike Moldova, which the US has turned into a logistics hub for supplying weapons in Ukraine. Remember, Moldova is not a NATO country, so Article 5 would not be able to be used to bring in the rest of NATO to defend a non-NATO country. Russia also is reserving the right to attack any country that attacked Russia. There are any number of US and NATO bases and installations in Poland, Romania, Germany, France, the UK, and elsewhere. But this last attack by Russia would certainly provoke a nuclear war, in my opinion. But short of that, the US and NATO are helpless to do anything and will be forced to abandon Ukraine as they had to do in Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq. It's been my purpose and my mission since 2016 to try to look at things from the Russian perspective. It's been my mission to try to understand the people of Russia. It's been my purpose to try to understand this country's deep and rich history, its aversion to war. Russia, like no other country, has suffered at the hands of invasions from Western nations for centuries, losing tens of millions of people. Russia is a peaceful nation. Russians want no part of war. They know what it is. People in America do not know what war is. People throughout Europe should remember. So Russia is a peaceful country, but it has been forced to prepare itself for yet another attack and an assault on its sovereignty, on the motherland. What I have learned in coming here since 2016 and living here in Yalta, the Crimea, since 2019, is that Russia is not our enemy. And it has been my mission to counter that narrative that Russia is evil, that Russia is the one that has provoked this. It has been my mission to try to prove and show that Russia, in 25 years at least since Putin has been president, has not shown any indication of wanting to move west to take back or take over former Soviet republics, or much less to attack NATO in the EU. Russia, since Putin has been president, has always wanted to be part of NATO, has always wanted to be part of Europe. Western Russia considers itself European. If you come here, you can see this clearly. Russia has always wanted to be part of the US-dominated capitalistic world. Russia is a hybrid capitalist country, not the predator capitalism like we see in the United States and the West, but Russia is a capitalist country. And so for the United States and the UK and the rest of their vassals to say that Russia is the enemy and that Russia is a threat to world peace is a categorical lie. Why? Because those that controlled the managers in Washington, you can decide for now who you think they are. They have wanted to maintain American hegemony. In other words, their power and their control over the entire planet. Russia has been a threat to that. But there's an even greater threat. And President Trump, incoming President Trump, has recognized this. He's pointed out that the BRICS nations, that movement towards a multipolar world, is a great threat to the United States. And what this will do, this will destroy the United States economy and the Western economy. This is another reason on a higher geopolitical level why the United States is engaged in this epic battle for the future control and order of the world. The only question is, will the United States come to its senses and agree to be just one among other nations as equals? I would hope so. Or will those crazed globalists, recognizing they have lost their control over the rest of the world, recognizing they have lost this epic battle for the future control and order of the world, take us all down with them in a nuclear Armageddon? What will tomorrow bring? Who knows? The only thing I can say to people is there's really not much you can do to stop this. It's unstoppable. So if you pray, pray, but certainly do whatever you can to get your life in order and to enjoy as fully as you can the people that you love, the people that you are close to, and this beautiful planet that is our home. This is Dateline for today, November 22nd, 2024, from Crimea in the Russian Federation.